minute. Mike Davis. Here's what I'd like to do. I've got Mike. I want to play. We got a cold open for Mike. A couple of things I got to get with Mike. Tomorrow's historic argument in front of the Supreme Court. We're covering it wall to wall on President Trump's tariffs, but also it gets to the heart of what this audience has been absolutely critical about, which is Article 2 powers. And what's the office of the president's Article 2 powers, the President of the United States powers? We're going to talk about that, and we've also got a lot of moving pieces. And Mike's got a long thread up on social media, on Twitter, to go through this. Let's go play the cold open and bring in the Viceroy, Mike Davis.
Well, they're all finding a job anywhere in Washington right now. They certainly have been. And how many law firms are not willing to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump right now and his administration? Some have just started their own firm in the last few days. But, there is a very human moment towards the end of the book where, Jack realizes it's all over. And, he's with his prosecutors and says, I have a wonderful wife and kids, and that's what really matters in this world. And, I urge you to find what matters for you and to hold on to that, because everything they'd been working on was over. Everything that they'd really poured night and day into.
In Jack Smith's orbit, his inner circle was, we could be overturned. The fear for Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, who ultimately tacitly approved this move, was the appearance of shopping for a better jury in D.C. D.C. had indicted every single Capitol rioter, and definitely was much more anti-Trump.
Well, Merrick Garland comes across as someone for whom a time capsule is required. His judgment and his pace of decision-making feel like the most dangerous thing at the Biden-era Justice Department. Is that a fair extrapolation of your body of reporting on Merrick Garland's conduct?
This is an extremely respected jurist, somebody that I covered.
Judge.
Yes.
He was a judge.
Forgive me. A very, very respected judge who had that job for 24 years, and somebody I covered way, way, way back when I was a youngster. Broad support for him as a judge. As an attorney general, people felt that he was hearkening back to a post-Watergate playbook that no longer played. He was living in a world in which it would be okay to turn the page, but it turns out that not looking at the evidence that was very public, starting, we learned, in December 2020, there were investigators pushing for an investigation based on evidence that they didn't actually open until a year and a month later. Same evidence, right? December 2020, and they didn't open this investigation until January 30th, 2022. It would not have been more clear when he was the Attorney General that he did not want anyone speaking. We have a moment in the book that's never been reported before where he was livid when then about to be former U.S. Attorney Mike Sherwin went on 60 Minutes to explain the evidence in the riot investigation and how he believed you could charge these people with seditious conspiracy, those who had helped arrange the riot, those who came with riot gear and, special and zip ties, but also the radio communications, the sort of front phalanx, if you will. And he went on air and made this series of comments about how he really thought seditious conspiracy was the way these charges were trending. He'd made that recommendation to Merrick Garland privately, and now Merrick Garland was hearing it on national television. And the end result of that was they recommended referring Mike Sherwin for disbarment in 2 states where he held a law license.
For discussing what the crimes were that they would try to build cases for.
Yes.
So they were going to be disbarred, and now everyone that worked under Merrick Garland's direction and decision to appoint a special counsel, Jack Smith, to investigate Donald Trump's crime of mishandling classified documents and interfering with the election has been fired, purged, and canceled, and they're going to do nothing?
It's a great question that we won't be able to answer for them. I'm just telling you, if past is prologue, I do not see them coming forward for this.
Stunning. And Chris Wray?
Silent so far?
Also quiet so far.
Many, many millions of American people that it's all politics. It is not politics. None of it is politics, Ali Velshi. And the American people must understand that.
I'll do a little longer cut on Ludwig, because what he's saying there is so important. That is signal, not noise, about the Roberts Court on everything we got going forward, including tomorrow. And Ali Velci, this is his that Saturday morning interview. Mike Davis, let me start with, brother, if you don't bring some scalps, you're going to get thrown under the bus. That's Carol Leonnig and Aaron Davis over at the, I think it's Washington Post. I think she's still there. She might go on the line, but they've been at the Washington Post forever. And they are throwing Jack Smith and particularly Merrick Garland under the bus in this book, Injustice, as many laws as they broke, as many things that they did on weaponizing the federal government. It's not good enough because Trump's not in prison. He's president again. Brother, just give me your assessment of that. I can play these, that when they're going around pitching this book, I could play this all day long, sir.
I would say to Jack Smith, you were the Democrats' useful idiot, and you're no longer useful. You failed to deliver, and as good Marxists do, you are. They're going to take out the knife for you, brother. You're toast. You didn't deliver.
No. This is no. You're 100% correct. This is exactly what the Bolsheviks do. The Bolsheviks and Stalin and these guys. Hey, if you bring the scalps, if you bring the scalps, as long as you're bringing them, you're good. The moment you don't bring them, it's a show trial. They're cutting. I mean, Merrick Garland gets ripped on in this book, and Jack Smith gets ripped on as not doing enough, not breaking enough laws, not because it's all about getting Trump to prison and to make sure he can't return. There's when you read these books and see these interviews, Mike, they're still kind of in shock that Trump is back. You can feel it as it goes through. You're like a sitting Shiva or it's an Irish wake. They're sitting there just in kind of shock about what just happened, sir.
Yeah, because they don't understand real Americans and real America. They don't understand the war room posse. They don't understand how people think in the real world. They are in a bubble. They're in the New York and D.C. bubble. And it would be shocking to people in New York City and Manhattan and in Washington, D.C. and, the fancy parts in Northwest, Upper D.C. It is shocking that real Americans in real America actually like Donald Trump and want him to be the president. And these lawfare Democrats did everything they could to sabotage not only President Trump, but sabotage the American people, the American electorate for the last 8 years. They made up the Russian collusion hoax to protect Hillary and to hurt President Trump. And when that failed in 2016 and Trump won the White House, they tried to destroy his presidency. They hobbled it with the Russian collusion hoax. They did the Arctic frost on the United States senators and the Trump allies after President Trump left office. They impeached him twice for nonsense. They indicted him 4 times for non-crimes. They tried to bankrupt him for non-fraud. They tried to throw him in prison for the rest of his life. They tried to throw him off the ballot unconstitutionally in Colorado and Maine and elsewhere. They tried to take off his head when they underfunded his Secret Service and said he's the gravest threat to democracy. And Biden said to put a bullseye on him. This is an ongoing criminal conspiracy, and they're really going to be shocked when they face these grand jury subpoenas and when they face criminal indictments. It's going to get a lot worse for these lawfare Democrats. These lawfare Democrats laughed at Kash Patel, the FBI director, at Dan Bongino, at Lindsey Halligan, the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia outside of D.C. They're not laughing anymore as Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Lindsey Halligan showed the receipts yesterday that you talked about that's on all my social media. These are damning documents with Comey and these other lawfare Democrats.
Hang on one second, because we've seen a shift here in the last 2 or 3 weeks with Grassley's committee, what Kash has put out. I want to take that thread, and I want to hold you through the break for a few minutes too I want to take that thread, which you kind of lay out in the Viceroy's thing. Walk us through this kind of sea change we've seen over the last 2 or 3 weeks here, sir, and what it means for us going forward.
Well, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Chuck Grassley, my former boss, the Senate Judiciary Chairman, Lindsey Halligan, Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, they're firing on all cylinders, and they're actually delivering. And I give great credit to these people, particularly Kash Patel and Lindsey Halligan. They are going up against the deep state, and anyone who's done this in the past has been utterly destroyed. And Kash and Dan and Lindsey and so many others that we talked about they're just bold and fearless warriors for the Constitution. They know what these lawfare Democrats did to President Trump, his top aides like you, Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro and Jeff Clark, his allies. This is the biggest scandal in American history, what these lawfare Democrats did. They did not like what the American voters did in 2016, and so they tried to destroy that. They tried to destroy President Trump for the last 8 years. They tried to destroy his top aides, his allies. They threw everything they had at President Trump, and Teflon Don is back in the White House, and they're going to have a meltdown. They're really going to have a meltdown again when the grand jury subpoenas start going out and the indictments start flying. It's going to get very, very ugly for these lawfare Democrats,
very quickly,
as we've discussed on your show for the last 3+ years since the Mar-a-Lago raid, and we're going to put their asses in prison where they belong.
Okay, a couple things I'm hearing is that, number one, there's about 100 subpoenas backed up as the lawyers try to work through them. Also, there's superseding indictments going to come out. Let's take it. We got about a minute here, and I'll hold you through the break briefly. I know you got to bounce. The grand jury subpoenas, I heard they're backed up like flights on a Friday night over LaGuardia, sir.
I have to be careful what I say about grand jury subpoenas. I may know that there are grand jury subpoenas. I may not know.
Exactly.
But I would say to these lawfare Democrats, lawyer up, because justice is definitely coming, and I'm going to make damn sure that happens.
Justice will be served. We have Mike Davis, the Viceroy, with us. Mike, I'm going to just hold you for a couple minutes. If Grace and Mo can put up that Twitter thread yesterday of Davis, it's really quite brilliant, and it kind of walks you through everything because you use this as a roadmap. Remember, Mike came out of Grassley's committee, and over there, those guys are deadly serious. So this goes to another phase right now. Of course, more information, and the more it's put out there and promulgated, the more whistleblowers and the more folks you're going to have over in the apparatus. They're going to say, hey, no mas, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to get rolled up in this. This is one of the things I think you're seeing is that they're getting access to these hidden rooms. They're getting access to things that were hidden before. I don't know. Is there obstruction charge there? Oh, probably, but that's another thing that's got to be in the hopper. Right now, they're shorthanded. Everybody knows that, but they're grinding away. And I think you've seen a sea change in this since Lindsey Halligan's come over, and just a woman on fire on this. Short break. The Viceroy next. Jim Rickards also with us. Short commercial break. Back in a moment. Davis, correct me if I'm wrong. And you were a Bush White House guy, right? You were Bush, and it tells you how many warriors were actually in the Republican Party and the conservative movement at the time that just need a little guidance from the populist nationalist warriors, right? And then they're our frontline troops. The Federalist Society, Leonard Lee on that crowd, I thought they were lecturing us for the longest time. They had got that there was no evidence here. What was that about?
Yeah, I remember when people looked at this case against James Comey for perjury, for false statements, for obstruction of a congressional investigation, when Comey lied twice in 2017 and 2020 to the Senate Judiciary Committee, when the Senate Judiciary Committee was investigating this Russian collusion hoax. All the wimps, the FedSoc wimps, said that there's no evidence here. Well, Lindsey Halligan teams up with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, and guess what? They found the evidence. They got the indictment in Alexandria, Virginia, certainly not Trump country, in this Democrat suburb outside of Washington, D.C. And then Comey was stupid enough to file a motion to dismiss the indictment for malicious prosecution. And they were saying that Lindsey Halligan and Kash and Dan and the rest of the all-stars in the Trump administration were targeting Comey only because of his First Amendment rights, right? And so then Lindsey said, okay, then I'll show you the receipts. And Lindsey showed the receipts that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino found, including in the burn bags inside of a skiff inside the FBI. They were trying to destroy this evidence, and Kash and Dan found it, turned it over to Lindsey, and Lindsey filed her response to Comey's motion to dismiss for malicious prosecution. It's on all my social media. It's pinned to my social media, Getter, Truth, X, all of it. And these receipts are so damning, Steve. I mean, it's just Comey is absolutely cooked with this evidence. And the jury follows this evidence. He's done. But Comey has bigger problems. I imagine there's going to be other indictments coming down the road, maybe in the Southern District of Florida, for this conspiracy against rights that we've been talking about, where the Obama and Biden regimes politicized and weaponized intel agencies and law enforcement to take out Trump, his top aides, his allies. This is, again, we keep saying this, these are the appetizer indictments against Big Tish and Comey. Wait till we get to the main course with Crossfire Hurricane, with the conspiracy against rights under 18 USC Section 241. These people are cooked.
Amazing. The Viceroy has been one of the tips of the spear in this, and it's incredible coming together. We just got to drive it. After tonight, there's going to be a lot of pressure on President Trump, I think, or people to slow this thing down. You can't. You got to hit it with more speed than ever. I want to, before I lose you, tomorrow at the Supreme, we're going to have an all-star group tomorrow of some of the best folks, like we got Rickards coming on about globalization, trade tariffs. But the one thing, Ludig's there, brother, because Mike Davis, having worked on for years when we were in the wilderness with the Project 2025 guys and the Stephen Miller guys over America First Policy Institute, and of course the great Russ Vought and others, basically came up, driving the maximalization of Article 2, or the unitary theory of the executive. The Supreme Court has come out and kind of, I don't know, Mike, it's backed your theory of the case, which is these are political decisions. These are political choices and need to be rectified at the polls through something called politics. That's why Ludig, who's still bitter at Trump and even bitter at the Bush guys for passing him over to the Supreme Court because he thinks he should be Chief Justice, and he ain't. That's why he's doing Saturday mornings on MSNBC at 7:30 in the morning, of course, with the War Room watching. Your thoughts about what tomorrow is going to show, and why is Ludig using this mantra? It's not political. It's not political. It's not political, sir.
Well, I love, Bannon, that you have Judge Ludig, Michael Ludig, just absolutely triggered. He keeps saying your name. You're living rent free in Michael Ludig's head. He is this washed up loser, former federal judge. Like you said, Steve, he's so bitter that he got passed over for the Supreme Court. I was in the Bush White House Office of Political Affairs at the time, as you said. I'm a little bit more radical than my colleagues. I broke a little bit more China, as you can imagine, than my colleagues did in that White House. But Ludig, he's never recovered from his bitterness, and Trump has absolutely fried Ludig's brain. And remember, this is the same Michael Ludig. I just wrote a piece in the Federalist on this, and it published yesterday. This is the same Michael Ludig who said that the Colorado Supreme Court decision throwing Trump off the ballot, I think he said masterful or something like that. That got reversed 9-0 by the Supreme Court. It is really hard to get reversed 9-0 by the Supreme Court, but Michael Ludig and his goofball theory found a way. They're just bitter. They're bitter that the American people put President Trump in the White House twice, really 3 times, but they stole the election in 2020, and they're bitter. And they are so mad at real Americans and real America, like the War Room posse who put President Trump back in the White House, and they're doing everything they can to stop him. They run Crossfire Hurricane before his presidency and during his presidency. They ran Arctic Frost after his presidency to try to take out Trump and MAGA. Now they're trying to use judicial sabotage. They're trying to have these Democrat activist judges in these Democrat hellholes like New York, D.C., Atlanta, Boston, and elsewhere try to destroy his presidency. But the Supreme Court's not going to let that happen. And we need to give, and I mean this sincerely, not only David Warrington, the White House counsel, but also Attorney General Pam Bondi. We need to give her credit for this. She doesn't get enough credit. Bill Barr would not have brought these cases to the Supreme Court because Bill Barr is a blowhard pussy. And Pam Bondi has bigger balls than all the Republican attorneys general before her combined. And she's the one who's taken this aggressive approach and going to the emergency docket of the Supreme Court and getting these monumental wins, not only for President Trump, but for the presidency and his Article 2, core Article 2 executive powers. And Pam is winning monumental cases. She's won like 21 cases at the Supreme Court already, and she's just getting warmed up. And so cheers to Pam, Todd Blanche, John Sauer, the Solicitor General. We have an all-star team. And I would say look out for my friend Jason Redding Quinones, the new Miami U.S. Attorney. He just opened a special grand jury, a new grand jury in Fort Pierce, Florida. I imagine that we're going to see some action down there.
Mike Davis, the tip of the spear, always in the lead tank. Where do people get you on social media? You got to follow him on Getter, and you got to follow him on Twitter because you're putting up great stuff all the time, and people need to be in the details here, folks. You need to see the receipts. Where do they go, Mike?
Yeah, for the next 3.5 years, we're going to be holding these lawfare Democrats accountable. So buckle up. Its justice is definitely coming as promised and as being delivered. You can go to article3project.org, article3project.org. Follow us on social media. Yeah. Donate, but only what you can afford. And again, the War Room Posse's superpower is action, action, action.
Action, action. Sir, thank you so much. Judge Ludick, Mike meant to say 7.5 years, but more on that later. Mike Davis, thank you. The Viceroy joining us on Election Day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.